Welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about self-sabotage, specifically framing self-sabotage in terms of temptation and how temptation is an opportunity for you to do good. So what does this mean? Very interesting concept. Maybe you have never have heard about this spoken in this way before. So self-sabotage, a lot of people think about self-sabotage as doing things that work against your own best interest. Now, why do we do things that work against our own best interest? Well, because we are tempted by them. Typically, they are vices, right? Whether it's watching videos, whether it's eating unhealthy food, whether it's going out and getting wasted, doing copious amounts of drugs, engaging in um, lascivious behavior, let's put it that way, and behavior that you deem, according to your own standards, is not something that you want to engage in. It's another story if you do a bunch of stuff and you don't think there's anything wrong with what you're doing. This channel is not really devoted to the people who don't think that there's anything wrong with any self-destructive behaviors that they're engaging in, right? So if you are engaging in self-destructive behaviors, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, why am I engaging in self-destructive behaviors? Because what I'm doing when I'm doing that is I'm engaging in self-sabotage. So I'm sabotaging my own success. And the reason I'm sabotaging my own success is because when I get to a point where I'm tempted by something, I give in to that temptation. And typically speaking, that temptation arises when we're in our weakest points. So when we feel weak or when we feel vulnerable, when we feel exhausted, when our energy is low, typically that's when they happen. It's not usually, we're not usually tempted and we don't usually self-sabotage when we're feeling strong, we're feeling confident, we're feeling focused, we're feeling energized. Think about it, right? If you think about all the times in your life where you've given into temptation and vices and sabotage yourself, it's not in the moments where you're feeling excellent and then all of a sudden you just do destructive things. Rarely, right? Now, sometimes that is the case only because we've heard this concept before, is you have a specific self-image that you have about yourself. And when you start to exceed that self-image, you unconsciously engage in behaviors that will take you down to that particular level because that's how you see yourself at a deep level. And that deep level typically is generated by conditioning. So it's not really our choice. So we're not saying that we think consciously that we're worth X amount of goodness, for example. And then once we get to that point, we're like consciously thinking, okay, now there's no reason for me to continue ascending, so I'm just going to sabotage myself. It's not a conscious process. So now the purpose of this video is for you to basically be aware of your temptations, right? That's the whole purpose of the temptations, because every temptation is an opportunity to do good, right? Remember, if you look at, say, for example, biblical history, the way people build their character, when I talk about like character development, building your principles, is you can only really build your character at a very strong and very core level if you're overcoming some level of adversity or pain, which means that even though you're suffering, even though you feel pain, even though you're in the darkness, you use all of that for your benefit. You're basically an alchemist where you're taking all of that and you're transforming it into something that's going to actually change you for the better. So remember, temptation is not a bad thing. Moments where you're tested and moments where you feel like you give in to self-sabotage, those moments are actually not bad moments. So don't wish those moments to not exist, because it's only in those moments that you're really and truly going to begin to build your character at a very foundational level. So I want to basically reframe and reorient you to start thinking about moments where you give in to vices, moments where you self-sabotage, as moments where you have a temptation, you give into that temptation. So when you do the opposite of what that temptation is calling for, that's basically a demonstration through practical application, through action, through you not doing that thing and doing something else, that you're actually building your character, right? That you're a person of discipline, that you're a person of integrity, that you tell yourself that you're not going to do something and you don't do it. So, and it doesn't mean that you beat yourself up if you actually succumb to that temptation, because remember, the only way that we can actually get out of these things when we're in them is by being kind and compassionate to ourselves. And the reason I keep saying that over and over and over again is because you have to ask yourself, if in those moments you judge yourself and you criticize yourself, it's probably something that you've been doing for a long time. So you have to ask yourself, if you're still battling with these feelings, if you're still battling with yourself, if you're still trying to build your life, and you've been using the tools that you've been using prior, why would they now magically work? So it's not like you beat yourself up if you fail. You have to generate that awareness, right? You're generating that awareness. You're giving yourself credit all the time. When you're aware of something, when you have a realization, when you do something good, you know what I mean? You give yourself credit, right? You're giving yourself credit. You're speaking to yourself kindly. You're self-parenting yourself. And same thing when you fail, right? When you fail, imagine if you had a kid, like you were your own son or daughter, and you were running on the field and you fell down. If you were a parent on the sidelines, would you start screaming at your kid? Would you start telling them that they're useless and I knew you were going to fall? Is that what you're going to say to your kid? Oh, I knew you were going to fall. You weren't running properly. As they're on the ground, you might be thinking that's ridiculous. Yeah, it is ridiculous. So why would you talk to yourself in a similar fashion? So remember that you have to just be aware of what's happening, right? What you need to do, and you're more likely to do it in the future, right? As long as you're developing all of these habits that I keep talking about. And there's small things, because what you're doing is you're building your boat in the calm, right? You're building your boat when there's no storm. So that when the storm arrives, you actually have a boat, right? And you can paddle on the boat and you can ride the waves as opposed to you drowning in the water. So that's why it's important when you have moments of solace. And I don't mean like moments as far as like weeks at a time and years at a time. No, no, no. It could be hours at a time, right? It could be days at a time. You start to do things that are good for you. So that way, when you get tested, you're more likely to overcome, right? You're more likely to pass the test and then move on to the next level. If you don't, well, then you learn from it. Remember, every experience is a chance to either you either, there's an expression which you either you win or you learn, something to that effect, which is either you surpass it, right? You take all the lessons, you're able to utilize those lessons and then move to the next level, or you learn, right? Which means that you didn't go to the next level, but you have now all of the information so that you can be more aware of what you need to do in the future, and perhaps you can even overcome that test sooner rather than later. And it may even be more beneficial for you because you're going to come back even stronger than before. So instead of you kind of like overcoming or surpassing an obstacle 90% of the way, but you still like barely made it, or 80%, maybe next time you know exactly what you need to do. You see all of the holes in your strategy or whatever you did, and that way you smash through it 100%, and you feel even better. So remember that moments of self-sabotage is really just temptation calling to you. And when you don't succumb to that temptation, when you act in accordance with your principles, as opposed to that temptation, what it's calling for, you build your character, and then you're able to use that as leverage, because that's what's really building your character at a foundational level. And whenever you make mistakes, you're being kind to yourself, you're speaking encouraging words, you're self-parenting, you're being compassionate, and you're still giving yourself feedback, but you're being very kind to yourself and you're demonstrating love. So that way it makes it more likely that you're going to succeed in the future, and it's less likely that you're going to be discouraged, because the last thing that you want to do is be discouraged. Discouragement is one of the killers of human life, because if you're feeling discouraged, then you basically don't really have any motivation. You don't have any energy. There's no positive emotion in you when you're feeling discouraged, right? You're low energy, no positive emotion, no motivation. It's very unlikely that you're going to be able to move, to do things, and then also to do the right things, and also to do things consistently, and then also to do more challenging things. So remember, it's the way you're relating to yourself as you're generating that awareness. So you generate the awareness, you know exactly what needs to be done, right? And you do what's required for you to actually overcome those temptations, which means like when there's quiet time, you're building yourself, you're doing the right things, you're working out, you're meditating, you have a healthy diet, you're writing things down, you're thinking about your life, you're developing a vision for yourself. So that way, when the temptations come, when the self-sabotaging moments come, you're like, oh, no, right? You start to remember all the things that you've been doing, like the way you've been building yourself. So it makes it less likely that you're going to succumb to those temptations and engage in self-sabotage. So I hope that video was helpful for you to kick off your weekend. You may be watching this on some random day, but it's a Friday for me. So anyway, if you like the video, make sure that you like it, you subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. I answer all of the comments. I record videos based off the comments, right? So if you have a question, ask me. Amber Moon yesterday, she asked a question around trauma bond relationships, and I recorded a 30-minute video for her about trauma bonds. So if you have any questions, if you like the way I explain things, then please feel free to leave a comment below, ask me a question. And that's it. Subscribe to my newsletter, because I keep publishing articles there, and I think they're pretty solid. Hopefully they are. But yeah, that's it for me. So if you have anything else, just let me know. You can follow me on X as well. You can DM me on X. And that's it. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Have a good rest of your day.